Presentation and setup are essential pieces to immersion. Now, a good story can certainly help things, but it's not inherently necessary. As a man who loves story, I can put my own desires aside to say that. Now, the Metroid series doesn't have a track record with notable stories, just like I don't have a track record with agreeable Metroid videos. The way Metroid stories work is Samus gets sent somewhere, then ends up staying longer than she planned on. And aliens. An abundance of aliens. But really, the original 3 Metroids were incredibly simplistic. Stop the space pirates. Kill the Metroids. Stop the space pirates again. They were little world makers, but the stories weren't ever emphasized. What you did know without a doubt was you were in a dark alien world. And you were alone. Now, before you think I'm a moron for the title down there, just hear me out. Survival horror is a genre, or rather subgenre, of games. I mean, the name is pretty self-explanatory. You try not to die while getting spooked. But there is an aspect that never comes to the forefront of the genre, and as such, gets overlooked. You are not well equipped for the situation at hand. But obviously, as a game, playing still has to be possible. See, there are games that don't have any continuing progression, and you keep the same tools on hand for the entirety. And that's okay, because all you do is try to run out the clock. But games with progression, where it's a point of the game, always have you start out with nothing. If you do get weapons pretty early on, and the items are a common occurrence, chances are the game is more action-oriented. Even games like Resident Evil, that give you a pistol and a dagger, make ammo and weapons very limited. You never want to use them, out of fear that you won't find more anytime soon. So keep this in mind. Surviving, getting spooked, and not being well equipped. So yada yada, 8 years go by, no 4th game until BAM! We get Fusion. Fusion was a drastic change for the series, in that it was linear, with go from point A to point B objectives. Now, unfortunately for the development team, this is the point in a franchise where people start getting upset with changes. If you change things up early enough, people will say, oh, this is where the series is headed, or, the first one was better. If you change things too late, people will say, this series is falling apart! But in this game was atmosphere, just like the first 3 games. The only thing that was missing was the isolation, as you have a computer helper the entire way through. But that got filled in with the creepier narrative. Not only are you trapped on a malfunctioning space lab with an incredibly dangerous parasite, stripped of all your abilities and health, but there's also a mindless clone of you at full power running around trying to kill you. Anytime the SAX is around, you feel the suspense, and you know that you don't want to be seen. I feel like this would be a unique kind of survival horror. You're trying desperately to survive, but instead of having a creature that is scary looking with jump scares, you get a feeling of anxiety and dread knowing what this creature can do to you. It's where you're scared of the known instead of the unknown. See, chronologically, this game is last in the Metroid timeline, so everything we've seen Samus do is built into this creature. You happily run into untraveled areas if it means you get away from that thing. But I mentioned in the beginning that a front and center story isn't necessary for survival horror, so Fusion can't be the center of focus here. Released concurrently with Fusion was Metroid Prime, a game that was an incredibly drastic change, but this time with gameplay. The series had always been side-scrolling, but this was an FPS adventure. Like I said, change is risky at this point, which is why people were skeptical about the game before its release. Luckily for them, it paid off. Now, while its partner is last in the timeline, Prime is actually second in the timeline. So the only thing Samus has done by way of games is take out the space pirate base on Zebes during her Zero mission. So shortly after that, Samus picks up a distress call from a mysterious space frigate known as the Orphean, flying above a no longer inhabited planet known as Talon 4. Here's where some more survival horror aspects come into play. Now, what's awesome about Prime is the different play styles, if you will. For those who want to upgrade and get to the end, you can do that. For those who want the story of the world, you can explore and you can find it. One way isn't more right than the other. And that's present from the very beginning. Samus boards the Orphean and immediately sees why the distress call was made. The place is in shambles, and before she's even in the decompression chamber to enter the ship, she discovers there was an emergency evacuation. Okay. Then she sees the destruction. She sees the corpse of a giant unknown beast, and something that was a bit of a surprise, a space pirate corpse. There are numerous space pirate bodies, some dead, some just weakened, but you find out how they died. broken legs, joints being fused together with acid, removal of all of its internal organs. What is going on here? By the way, all of this happened within the last 6 hours. In the map room, she discovers a space pirate file saying 2 parasite queens escaped. Then she sees a beast similar to the dead one earlier, but it's called a failed experiment, and that's clear as the thing is skeletonized even though it's still in its tank. Then there's a 3rd one, still in hibernation, but clearly alive. Also, there are more space pirates that are clearly feeling a little better than the others. And then the creepy really kicks in. You see a diagram of the creatures from before, the parasite queens. So there's a failed queen, one still in hibernation, and one dead. But the file said 2 escaped. Uh-oh. This thing is a space pirate experiment that crippled a space pirate ship and dozens of those on board and is still loose. Slight jump scare! More traveling. Then behind 2 huge blast doors, we see more dead bodies. But this time, they're fresh dead bodies. Great! And inside the nuclear reactor core of the ship, we see the other escaped parasite queen. Samus takes it down, but it falls into the reactor core and royally screws things up. Samus starts leaving, but comes across another experiment the pirates were running, cybernetically enhancing one of their bosses, Ridley. Riddles here escapes, going to Talon 4. Samus starts to give chase, but an explosion damages her power suit, leaving it with only basic survival functions. She makes it to her ship and to Talon 4 on a search for Ridley and the space pirate experiments. Now the end part with Ridley is only exciting for those who know the relationship between Samus and Ridley, so we'll leave that out. It's not pertinent to the topic at hand. But look at the setup. You go to a new place due to an emergency call. You see dead bodies and destruction, and while being attacked by what is still alive on the ship, are told that the source of the destruction is still out there. You see horrific bioweapons being made, creatures on the loose, with all of it culminating in meeting the monster. Defeating it isn't a happy moment because it not only dooms the ship, but permanently damages you. This game does not start off hopeful and lighthearted. This game scares you and tells you you are not safe. This will not be easy. So is Metroid Prime survival horror? Look at the 3 categories. Now, yes, technically, Samus has her ship, so she could leave at any time. She isn't trapped there. But something mysterious is going on, and she is going to figure out what. Should that count? Well, it's similar to Resident Evil. Star never had to stay in those woods. Of course, their situation is different as they were attacked and led to the house, so from there they can't leave. But what about Silent Hill? Harry can leave town, but his daughter is missing and something is up, so he doesn't. Being trapped doesn't seem to be a necessity, just a misfortune of the genre. So accepting that, yes, Samus is just trying to survive. Due to being damaged, she can't overcome everything when she first gets to Talon 4. She needs to progress, and more importantly, survive. Prime has some scares, especially when the corrupted ancestral spirits of Samus' adopted caretaking race attack out of nowhere. And the world is dark and barren, and there are stories of the seed and the poison all around. Right in the beginning, Samus loses everything the fully powered suit had. She is left with a suit that can shoot energy and read a map. That's all. So is this game survival horror? Nope. I mean, it's cool that they can fit into these categories, but come on. It's Metroid. The games are about being on a space adventure, stopping alien menaces, figuring out more about Samus' past, not getting scared. So why even bring up the question? Because Metroid, the Prime series in particular, changes depending on how you play it. You can play an explorative FPS sci-fi adventure, or you can play a journey into Samus' struggle to get back to where she was and uncover part of the history of her adopted family. Or you can play a mad dash to the finish and hope that you don't die. And some people say, Samus kicks ass, and others say, Samus is strong, and neither is more right. It's how they were taking what the game offered that affected their view. I think it's great that the games are diverse enough to hold many different styles, but really, these games are just about Samus and saving the galaxies. And aliens. An abundance of aliens.